When you open Google Earth and fly over Florida, some cities immediately make sense. The Miami-Fort Lauderdale area, for example, is this endless stretch of beaches, skyscrapers, and luxury homes spreading along the Atlantic. It's exactly what you would expect a Florida city to look like. But then there's Orlando, and from above it almost feels like a glitch in the system. For me, the curiosity started with the airport. I stumbled across it a while ago and was so fascinated by its unusual design that I ended up rebuilding it in city skylines. Ah, the good old times, right? But the deeper I zoomed in, the more odd things I noticed about the city. For example, Orlando's downtown looks surprisingly small for a metro of over 2 million people. Just a tiny cluster of towers surrounded by endless suburbia. And right next to it is this oversized highway interchange, so you basically immediately know you're in America. The downtown just looks so comically tiny compared to this massive spaghetti monster next to it. Then you zoom out a bit and your eyes catching all the round blue dots scattered across the whole region. Lakes, hundreds of them, almost perfectly circular, like God created whack-a-mole in real life. Flying more to the south and you'll see that strange airport I was talking about, shaped like a four-armed starfish. I love starfish. And if you look around the edges, there's a surreal concentration of giant theme parks. Disney, Universal, SeaWorld, built right next to each other in the middle of a forest, all in a city that doesn't even have a beach. Orlando doesn't fit the normal rules of how American cities grow, and that's exactly what makes it so fascinating to explore. I'm Daniel, and today I'm showing you one of the wildest cities in America. When you think of a city with more than 2 million people in its metro area, you would probably imagine a somewhat huge downtown skyline. But in Orlando, the downtown, if you can even call it like that, is surprisingly small. Just a handful of medium-sized high-rises surrounded by endless suburban sprawl. It almost feels like they just gave up on building a real city and started directly with suburbia. Orlando itself has about 320,000 residents, but the metro area is much bigger, stretching across Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and Lake counties. That's why you'll often hear people say Orlando when they actually mean the whole region, not just the city limits. And right next to this cute little cluster of skyscrapers, we have one of the biggest interchanges in the region. Interstate 4 slices through downtown, and where it meets State Road 408, it turns into this monstrous tangle of ramps and flyovers, like we know it rather from Texas. It's almost comical, a giant highway knot that looks like it was built for LA, sitting beside the downtown the size of South Bend, Indiana. At least they have a rail line here, right? And imagine living in these houses. Ouch. But that mismatch is really the whole theme of Orlando. It's a metro that grew explosively in the second half of the 20th century. Not around industry or a port like most American cities, but around cars, suburbs, and eventually tourists. And you can see that weird DNA right here in the city center as well. One of the first things you notice when flying over Orlando in Google Earth is the sheer number of lakes. They are everywhere, hundreds of small and medium-sized bodies of water scattered across the region, many of them almost perfectly round. One of the reasons you would recognize Orlando directly from above. Let me definitely know if you would be interested in a little quiz video, so to speak, where you have to recognize cities from above. The reason for the lakes is geology. Central Florida sits on top of limestone, a rock that slowly dissolves when water moves through it. Over thousands of years, underground cavities formed, and when the ground above collapsed, it left behind holes that filled with water. That's why Orlando's lakes often look so circular. They're simply former sinkholes. Today, the risk of new sinkholes hasn't disappeared. Central Florida is still one of the most sinkhole-prone regions in the state, especially after heavy heavy rains or sudden shifts in groundwater, though most cases are small and not catastrophic. These lakes are now an essential part of the city's life. They are used for recreation like boating and fishing. You can also swim in there, but maybe some alligators want to play with you. They also host waterfront homes, and entire neighborhoods are circled around these lakes, which makes them also useful in collecting stormwater during the rainy season. Altogether, they give Orlando a very unusual look. Instead of a continuous sprawl, the metro area feels broken up by patches of water almost everywhere you look around. If there's one piece of infrastructure that really sets Orlando apart, it's the airport. Orlando International, MCO, isn't just one of the busiest airports in the United States, it's also one of the strangest looking ones. Instead of a single big terminal, it has a central hub with 4 separate concourses branching out like islands, connected by people movers. From above, it's really one of the most unusual airport designs I've ever seen, especially with all the water inside, but I guess that's just perfectly fitting to Orlando after all. This design came out of the 1980s, when Orlando was starting to explode as a tourist destination. The airport needed to handle huge numbers of passengers efficiently, most of them families arriving for vacations. So instead of funneling everyone through one crowded building, the island terminal setup spread people out, with each concourse having its own security and gates. The results speak for themselves. MCO handles well over 50 million passengers a year, making it one of the busiest airports in the country, even though Orlando itself isn't a particularly large city. It's also consistently ranked as one of the top US airports for international arrivals, with tourists coming not only from across America, but also from Europe and South America, all headed mostly to the theme parks. And to keep up with this growth, Orlando recently opened a brand new South Terminal, adding another modern concourse with expanded international capacity. So while it might look unusual from above, the starfish design plus the constant expansions are part of what makes Orlando's airport so good at what it does, moving enormous amounts of tourists in and out of the city as smoothly as possible. If there's one thing Orlando is known for worldwide, it's the theme parks. From above, you can see them lined up along the city's southern edge, like giant playgrounds for children and adults dropped in the middle of a forest. Disney World, Universal, SeaWorld, and a long list of smaller attractions. But why Orlando? Why not Miami, which already had beaches and international tourism? The answer is partly geography and partly history. In the 60s, Walt Disney was looking for a place to build his next big project after Disneyland in California. Miami was already crowded, expensive, and exposed to hurricanes. Orlando, on the other hand, offered cheap flat land right in the center of Florida. It was far enough inland to be safer from big storms, and its location made it easy to reach from both coasts of the state. Disney bought up huge parcels of land in secret, and when Disney World opened in 1971, it completely changed the trajectory of the city. After that, the domino effect kicked in. Universal and SeaWorld built their own parks. Hotels and resorts followed, and the whole region reinvented itself around tourism. Today, Orlando is the undisputed theme park capital of the world, drawing well over 70 million visitors a year, more than many entire countries get in tourism. For locals, this creates a strange dynamic. The theme parks dominate the economy, the roads, and even the city's identity, while the actual downtown remains small and almost overshadowed by the entertainment complex outside of it. Orlando is less about being a traditional city and more about being the world's biggest vacation destination. So that was Orlando, a city of sinkhole lakes, a tiny downtown, massive interchanges, a strange looking airport, and the world's most famous theme parks. It doesn't follow the usual rules of cities around the world, but maybe that's why it's so fascinating to explore. If you enjoyed this dive into Orlando, make sure to subscribe for more curious city stories from around the world and give a like or hype to push it in the algorithm. But the best way to support the channel, of course, is to join my Patreon, where you'll get access to things like CS2 save games, for example. To all of you who already decided to support me over there, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're absolute legends. Thanks for watching, have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next one.